All right, welcome in. Turn stocks into a home. It's something that in the Bay Area is widely talked about, and there's some tips and tricks that you're going to learn today that you'll be very surprised about. And I'm excited for you. And did you know you could turn your stocks into real estate? And the coolest thing about the RSUs and stocks is there's multiple different ways to use them to get into a home. So, whether it's qualifying or actually using them for a down payment or different combination of those things, it's really exciting stuff. So, I'm not going to waste any other time. I'm going to bring in my mortgage expert who's going to explain all this fun stuff and how they actually get you qualified. At the end, if you guys want to learn more, if you want to talk to me more about the real estate market and things along those lines, I am happy to help. And I can explain more of the home buying process. This is going to be a major highlight on how you qualify and what the mortgage requirements are. All right, everybody, I am bringing in my mortgage expert, Eli Hernandez, to really figure out what we can do with these stocks and how do we turn them into a home. So welcome, Eli. How are you doing today?
Hey Brandon, doing great, man. Just excited. Spring's in the air. It feels good out here. So,
Hmm.
um, amazing topic to go over today to really
Yes.
put some people in some awesome homes today.
Yeah. So let's get into it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, stocks into a home. What does that mean? What does that look like? What does that feel like? Out there when you're working in the Bay Area, San Francisco, Santa Cruz, all over the place, you guys are, working with Tesla and Amazon and Qualcomm and all these crazy, beautiful tech companies.
Mhm.
And so with those tech companies, something comes out called restricted stock units. And so RSUs are just an amazing piece of income. You guys deserve it. If you're earning RSUs, you deserve it because you're in a place in a position that you're probably leading teams. You're in a place of position that you're part of a company that's probably doing very well in the stock market. And so this is a great place where you can earn some awesome income. But a restricted stock unit, we'll discuss a little bit more of that. But here and as a lender, kind of just some, big sky, eye in the sky here, right? This is considered income for you that you're attaining, and basically you'll see it on your pay stubs, right? You'll see that line item of RSUs on there. You'll also see on the W-2s, I believe it's in section 12 for you, or 14, depending on where the company wants to place it. And so you'll see it on W-2s and pay stubs that you're earning these RSUs. And so already, if you are earning those RSUs, basically, if you're doing 2 years or more, we're in great shape to use this income, not a problem. If it's under 24 months or under 2 years, there's going to be a couple things, and we'll talk through that in the next few slides, to see how we can qualify that income. And then also, we need to prove that income will continue for 3 years, right? It's kind of a weird thing. How do you prove the future, Eli? I get that question a lot. But basically, there's a certain document with your grant letters and things like that. I'll share that in a minute, showing, hey, you're expected to receive this from now that we're in 2025 with this video, maybe through 2028 that you show your vested stock. So we'll share a little bit of that.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Yeah. How does qualified mortgages pretty much put a definition in with restricted stock units, right? So basically, what they are, they're a collective stock. They're granted by the employers we just mentioned. It is a form of compensation, but here's the biggest terms, right? It's a compensation based on either performance or time, and we'll talk in a few slides later. How does that differ in how we calculate that income? Because that is different. And then, of course, they're awarded as stock or equivalent cash, and the number of shares, and then they vest over a certain number of years, right? You're going to receive stocks today, but they don't really vest for a certain amount of time. Totally, really straightforward here in understanding what an RSU is. And so, but basically, after you vest, you as an employee, this is the best benefit why you're receiving these, is that you can sell your share at the current price, or even hold it if you think the stocks are going to do better down the road. Hold it, and so therefore you can sell at that time, and now it's even a higher value, which is amazing. So, all right. So now we know what it is. How do we actually use it as qualified income, right? So as I mentioned before, it's performance based or time based. As performance based, there's a minimum history of 24 months that we want to source And as you could tell here, it says recommended. In guideline world, that's like, ooh, kind of open the door a little bit, right? If you look down here real quick and kind of what I'm saying here, for time-based, this is required. So when you hear something required in a guideline, it's black and white. You got to have it or you don't. If it
Right.
says it's recommended, going, oh, what else can we do here? So let's think about that, right? So if you have a minimum history of 24 months is recommended, but if the income received for 12 to 24 months from the current employer, this still can be considered as acceptable income if these positive factors offset the shorter income history. What are those? That the future vesting is equal or greater to than the previous vesting that will continue for at least 24 months. What does that mean? That's a little scientific there. So basically, it's saying, hey, even though what you earned maybe in the last 16 months, right, not the 24, is this amount, but when we look at your vesting schedule, we can see that the next 2, 3 years, you're expected to earn a lot more. Well, then we know that we can use this income even though you haven't done 24 months. That's the gray area. The other piece here is that if the restricted stock income, if you've received it from previous employers for the last 5 years, it's okay. You don't have 24 months of restricted history here with the current job you have, because we know that in the last 5 years, you've been in a position, you've been in a place where you absolutely had restricted stock income. And because of that history of 5 years, we're okay to leave that door open that you didn't go 24 months with the performance-based awards. Now with time-based awards, again, the history, it's a minimum of 12 months, and that is required. So if you're at your current job for 7 months, 8 months, and you have a time-based award, oh, that's going to kind of put a little dent in here and qualifying that. We may have to wait for 12 months to get there. But again, I mean, until we actually have the documents and information in front of us, we can make that happen. Last note here. This is a cool little piece here. Just any sign-on bonus or sign-on RSUs that you receive, we don't count that in any of the qualifying income whatsoever. So overall, a sign-on bonus in qualified mortgage world, we just don't count, right? If you're getting your typical conventional loans, FHA or VA, typically a sign-on bonus, no matter where it comes from and what it is and how it's structured, we just won't count it as income. Okay.
That
Good
makes
cash
sense.
though for a down payment. So, but
Yeah.
not for income going forward for your loan amount. All right. So really cool stuff there and how I dissect that performance based and time based for you. All right. What documentation? As we talked about, there's certain stocks. You heard me say vesting schedule, right? So let's start from the top here in the top bullet point. We got to make sure that your stock is still publicly traded. If you rewarded it and you haven't got it, maybe like we're in April 2025, maybe you haven't gotten an RSU in the last 4 months, but maybe they no longer trade on publicly. So we got to show that evidence. So let's make sure you're still being traded publicly. A vesting schedule. What is the current vesting schedule? You should be able to get this from HR, your payroll system, things of that nature is where you find your vesting schedule. And it shows basically what you've had received in the last past and, when you've been employed. But then it also does share the details of your program going forward. And they do typically show 3 to 5 years. So we're not crazy when we're asking for 3 years. It is pretty typical. But above and beyond that, we would just do a verification of employment and maybe get some more details if there's something just not showing so black and white about that future vesting. And then last, we do need a brokerage account. When you have RSUs, you do have a separate brokerage account that is being dumped into there. So we do need that statement showing where that values are and where those vested shares equivalents are going to be. So therefore, we kind of see things are moving along the way they need to. There's no discrepancies of any sort and things like that. And I just mentioned the verification of employment. So it does state we must document a completed request for verification. So a lot of times, what does that really mean? Does it mean we have to call your employer? No. A lot of employers have something called a digital verification of employment. And if the details on that digital verification is on there with your RSUs and additional income, we can absolutely use that and be fine. If not, if there is no digital verification, then we would contact your employer at that time. So we would get a name and number from maybe your HR department. At worst case scenario, maybe your manager in your department. So that we're just getting after that verification and hunting that down to put that in the file. We would want to do this before we actually do a pre-approval letter if we're going to use this income. That is a big number there, right? Because a lot of times, just so you know, like RSUs is a big qualifying number. I see people earning anywhere from $80,000 a year to $200,000 a year in RSUs, and sometimes beyond that. And because you're earning so much of that income, if a lender really doesn't have these documents or understand how to qualify that additional income, you're really putting yourself in a place where maybe your loan amount's not in a place you thought you would have, where I can use this as income and get you to that place where, hey, this is something where instead of saying, oh, you only approved for 800,000, no, we're approved for 1.1 on a loan amount. And therefore the additional down payment is what is going to take us to your final purchase price. So if a lender is not really doing these things, I mean, Brandon's already going to send you to the best, myself. No, I'm just kidding. But Brandon and I will make sure we take care of you and go through this before you're pre-approved, because we don't want to make a mistake here. That's a lot of income. If we make a mistake and you get into this contract and whoops, it doesn't qualify, wow, that's not good for anybody all around. Or the other way around, as I just mentioned, if a lender is really not doing their due diligence, as we do, Brandon and I, to make sure we can use this income, we're also putting you at a disservice. So we just want to make sure we put this out here together, knowing exactly what it takes, because it does take not just pay stubs and W-2s. There are a few other documents that we need to have to truly qualify this income.
That's awesome. And just so people know, you do see this quite often, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and like I said, there's so many tech companies in the Northern California area.
Mm.
When we're doing those contracts and those businesses, I do see this a lot, and there's so many ways. The biggest difference I see, especially, and why I talked the last piece about being a disservice to the client, whether or not how to qualify this income, because there is a lot of it. You're absolutely right, Brandon.
Right.
And banks, though, they also treat it differently all over the place.
Mm.
What's cool about us, we're going straight to Fannie and Freddie for a qualified mortgage. I don't have an overlay. We don't have these other restrictions or other little details that's like, oh, maybe you need 3 years of history with a certain bank, or the way they calculate is different. So there's things like that again, can change your pre-approval between different lenders and different banks.
Right. Totally. Yeah. And I think it's always good to kind of see if you can qualify and what you can qualify for at any time.
Yeah. Start the clock now. If you're thinking, oh, you know what, maybe I'm going to start buying a house at the end of this year because, maybe just something with your lease. Maybe your lease is not up until November. But if we can qualify today and what it looks like now, therefore we go forward, it's less stressful when you're actually ready to go to market. I mean,
Yep.
hands down.
That's one of the
It's
biggest
an
mistakes I
emotional
see.
time when buying a house. Go ahead. What was that, Brendan?
That's one of the biggest mistakes I see is people wait too long.
Yeah.
They don't realize how fast it comes.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
if we're using this, there's too many documents
Yeah,
to just it'll slow us down. And so to have ahead of time, like you're saying, is everything.
totally.
Awesome. So as I mentioned, different banks calculate it differently. This is how Fannie does it, right? For a qualified mortgage, if you're paid in shares, as we'll look at your the 200-day moving average, right? Believe it or not, it's simply Google or Yahoo, say, hey, this is the company. What's the 200-day moving average? And voila, we get a number. That's how simple we get this number.
Oh,
And so we go ahead and average that number along with your vested shares and then divide it by 24 months. Okay. What's really cool. So pretty straightforward there. If you're paid, excuse me, paid in cash, and I typically see paid in cash mostly, is how most companies do this. So we'll take the pre-tax equivalent, the value of those shares that you've been receiving, and then divide that by 24 months. So pretty straightforward. If it's a lot of times I see it on the W-2s, like 100,000 for 23, and then another maybe 120,000 in 24. Cool. So now we do 224,000 divided by 24 months. That's your income that you're qualifying for, and put that into the file. But here's a cool little note here. As I mentioned, remember that 24 months is kind of gray, right? So if you had received the RSUs for 5 years, and then you go ahead and say you've only received the current job, you've only received it for like 14 months or 16 months of RSUs. Well, we only get to qualify. We don't have to stretch it out for 24 months. Believe it or not, there's other variable income that we do as lenders that even though you've only received it for 18 months, I got to divide it out by 24. So, of course, that average drops. In this case with RSUs, what's really cool is I actually can just use the history of the income that the actual number of months the borrower has received. So I don't have to stretch it out to 24. We're going to have an exact number. If it's 16 months and you have history there, or you're expected to have additional income going forward, I absolutely can just go ahead and qualify it with just 16 months versus the full 24. So again, what does that mean? More income for the loan, and you qualify for a higher loan amount to leverage there. So really fun stuff there. Um, yeah, I mean, so what did went through? We went through, just to recap, kind of what it is, what documentation we need to have for RSUs. Um, and then we also said, what does it take to calculate that? What does it mean? And all the information there. But what's really even the little cherry on top, little pro tip is that you are able to still cash out those shares and use it for down payment. You can use it for your closing costs. There's a lot of times in the banking world, you may hear a lender or a banker say, hey, if you're pulling this account in for income, you can't use it for assets. Meaning if you're going to say you have $3 million in an account and you want to pull out $10,000 a month for income, that same account, you can't say, oh, I'm going to go ahead and also put my down payment out of that account. There's a lot of guidelines like that out there with banks. RSUs is different. You absolutely can cash out your stocks for the down payment and cash to close. Also, because we're qualifying as an income in that same account and in the same share. So it's very powerful in the home financing world. You really, if you are receiving RSUs, give Brandon a call, get us involved here. Here's his information. And we will definitely want to make sure, see if this is something we can qualify and get going.
Yeah, and I think any employees at any tech company here in the Bay Area and in Northern California in general, you're just way better off already, just because of how unique RSUs are, and like you were saying, how unique they are for assets and down payment, and using them for income too. So you guys are in a good spot. You're in a much better spot than a lot of people. So definitely get the ball rolling to see, what you can even qualify for, and see if you can get that home or not. Either way, that way you have that clarity and you can know what your next steps are. And that's what we do here. We're here to really be your advisors, really set up a plan, and really get you into that home eventually, whenever that timeline may be. So thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Eli. I appreciate it. Any final
Pleasure.
words?
Final words. Yeah, the faster you get started, the better it is. Buying a home is emotional, no matter how prepared we are. So,
Yeah.
as you said, start the ball rolling quickly. If you have this income, we are excited to work with you because you just unlocked just an amazing door for you and your family.
Awesome. Thank you, Eli. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Feel free to reach out here. And like I said, I'll have Eli's information available as well. So see you guys soon.